Well, it varies. I would say there's two key things. Looking over my career, I would say there's two key things. And I think Michele Wideman and touched on it. Number one is cost. A lot of businesses are looking at, they're looking at their spreadsheets and they look at learning and the investment in learning as a cost. They don't look at it as an investment. So when it's viewed as an expense and not an investment, it's it gets scrutinized a lot. And the other thing is when you look at learning development in and of itself may not be that expensive, but then you look at the labor cost when you're with a large company, and the labor cost is really what should get people worried about. It's not the actual learning development cost. But bottom line, if I go and say I need $50,000 for something, the finance team's going to look at me kind of cross-eyed. The next part I found is that there's often conflicting priorities. And I've seen this more in operations organizations where you have like a productivity metric, like a sales per hour metric. And so what happens is if a store isn't busy, for instance, and it's a good time for an employee to take some learning, some e-learning or whatever, they're off the floor, their sales metrics per hour drop. And so they get reprimanded. But they actually need the training because there's new product and they need the product knowledge, but they can't do it because of this vicious cycle. So I think you really need to be very mindful of productivity metrics. And that's not so much that the learning isn't good. The learning could be outstanding. But what it does is it impacts the execution of that learning. And in a large company, that's a big deal, right? So if my execution rates are 20 or 30%, it's very difficult for me to get the measures. If I can't get the measures, it's hard to justify. However, if my execution rate is at 90%, I can take the measures with a very high level of confidence that the learning did work or not. So I think those two key things, it's looking at it from a cost standpoint and then looking at the productivity metrics to make sure there's no conflicts.